What's going on, everybody? Tom here with Black Sheep Keto, and welcome to our deep dive into allulose. That's right, guys. In this video, I'm going to talk about what allulose is, how it's made, is it safe, any impact it has on blood glucose, ketones. We're going to do some blood tests. It is going to be a great time. So if that sounds good to you guys, hang on tight. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we will get right into the video. All right, everybody, let's get right into it. Now, you see a couple of examples here about what allulose looks like, but for those of you who don't know, let's talk about what allulose actually is. Now, allulose is a rare earth sugar, so it's different than like a, artificial sweetener or, a sugar alcohol in the fact that it is a naturally occurring sugar. But much like those sugar alcohols, sugar fibers, that kind of stuff, your body cannot absorb it. Now, the way they mark this stuff is it is the exact same taste as sugar, but 70% as sweet. I know erythritol does the same thing, but we all know that it has an aftertaste. This stuff, I find it has very minimal aftertaste. It's also only about 1/10 of the calories as sugar. So 1 gram of sugar is usually 4 calories. So for this stuff, it would be 4 calories for 10 grams of it. Now, that's quite a bit of sugar or sweetener for not a lot of calories. In terms of what it's used for, guys, it uses basically exactly like sugar, and it's actually very, very chemically similar to fructose. So you saw me in that pecan pie video use it to make a keto corn syrup type thing. Works great for that. This stuff dissolves really well in water. It bakes really well, just like sugar. It actually freezes like sugar too, so there might be an allulose ice cream coming in the future. But the point is, this stuff functions almost exactly like sugar, and they claim to have no impact on your blood sugar levels, which is awesome. And the studies actually go a little bit further than saying that there's just no impact on your blood glucose levels. They actually say that it helps slow down the digestion of other higher glycemic index foods. So let's say you have something that's got a very high glycemic index, like maltodextrin, which, if I recall correctly, is a little over 100 on the glycemic index. Apparently, if you were to eat some allulose with that, it would slow down the digestion of that maltodextrin so that you wouldn't get that massive blood glucose spike. Now, I'm not going to test that. Today, we're just going to test whether or not it moves my ketones and blood glucose levels, but that is an interesting thing as well. And as a note, it's not like other sweeteners where absolutely none of it gets digested. Some of it, it's a very small amount, but some of it can be digested, but it won't actually be metabolized by your body, so it actually still has absolutely zero effect on your body. And as such, even the US Food and Drug Administration recognizes it as not being a sugar. So companies are not required to put allulose as a sugar on their ingredients. Now, what they will have to do is they'll have to include it as a carbohydrate, since it technically is. But I suspect that if you start seeing this in more ketogenic foods, I even think Quest uses a little bit of allulose. I suspect that you're going to see allulose listed on the carbohydrate ingredient label, kind of like you would see erythritol on there. That way people know that they can subtract it from those total carbohydrates. Because if you don't list it as a sugar, but you still include it in the total carb count, people might get a little bit confused and think that, it's actually going to affect their blood sugar levels. And that's exactly the point of using allulose, so that it does not. And since the Food and Drug Administration has obviously done some research on it to know that, it's not going to affect our blood sugar levels, they actually have also labeled it as GRAS, or generally regarded as safe. This is basically the same safety rating that you'll find on most sugar substitutes, artificial sweeteners, blah, 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 blah. Although again, this is not artificial, it is 100% natural. That's right, I may not have mentioned this yet in the video, but allulose is a naturally occurring rare sugar. And it occurs in things like certain fruits, vegetables. I think it occurs in wheat and maple syrup, surprisingly enough, if I'm not mistaken. But the stuff you get commercially made is probably not harvested from natural sources, because obviously it's such a small concentration in those natural sources that in order to produce a bag like this or this, it would take a lot of the starting ingredient or whatever that is. Probably, let's just say they were extracted from, I don't know, maple syrup. Can you imagine how much maple syrup it would take to produce a bag like this of allulose, considering such a small concentration? Not going to happen. So the commercially available allulose that you find is probably going to be extracted from corn. And you might go, corn? No way, we can't do that on a keto diet. Well, sure, but take this. Erythritol is actually generally extracted from corn. It is a fermented byproduct of corn. So we can't necessarily say just because it had a source from corn that we can't have it on keto diet, because we've all accepted that erythritol is totally fine on keto. So since this is using the same relative process or extraction source, then I would say that allulose extracted from corn is just as viable as an option as erythritol extracted from corn. I think that's a safe assumption to make. Now, I may have mentioned it in passing already, but allulose is typically between 60 and 70% in Swedish sugar, so in order to get the same relative amount, you need to use just a little bit more. But the thing that I really do like about allulose is it's totally water soluble, as I mentioned earlier, compared to something like erythritol. Now, I do get comments occasionally of people saying that, oh, well, erythritol is actually water soluble, and you're kind of right. It will dissolve into water in a small concentration, but it oversaturates the liquid so quickly that you can't dissolve enough of it to do anything practical with it. For example, that pecan pie that I made, I tried using erythritol instead of that additional half cup of allulose, and I got this really nasty film of basically just gritty erythritol at the bottom of the pie. So while you can dissolve it a little bit, allulose is your way to dissolve things and keep it dissolved once it cools. Because a lot of times with erythritol and similar sweeteners, you can dissolve it with heat, but as soon as it cools down, it's going to recrystallize, especially in concentration. I've done allulose with above a 1-to-1 water and allulose ratio, and it stayed dissolved into a really thick syrup, as you can see in that pecan pie video. So allulose to me is like the perfect keto sweetener. It tastes like sugar, it has the same chemical properties as sugar, and it's claimed to not affect blood sugar levels at all. But we are going to test that. And as always, guys, I will put links to the studies on this stuff down in the description. But just for quick reference, there was a study done in 2015 where they gave participants a high dose allulose drink, which is pretty much what I'm about to do here. And they didn't notice any significant changes in blood glucose levels. They actually noticed over a period of time less signs of diabetes. There was really no effect on cholesterol or any of that stuff. Now, let's talk about servings, because there was another study, which I will link down there, that looked at serving size in terms of like digestibility and side effects. And this was done in Koreans, so I think we can all assume that the human body is relative to the human body despite the differences in diet between America and Korea. I'm going to take that study for what it is. In any case, they found that you can consume about 0.5 gram per kilogram of body weight per sitting without hitting the real effects of allulose. Now, once you go hit that 0.5 gram or higher, you start getting a little bit of bloating, gas, potentially diarrhea, that type of stuff. But they also found that in a single day, if you consumed less than 1 gram, so 0.9 grams or less, you didn't have those effects. It's when you consumed over 1 gram per kilogram of body weight in a single day that you started to have those nasty side effects. So let's break this down into practical numbers. I myself, at a 220-pound individual, that's roughly 100 kilograms. So if I just wanted to sit down in one serving and have the maximum amount that I could have without causing gastrointestinal problems, that's 50 grams of allulose. Now that is an insane amount, which is exactly what I'm going to do here in just a minute. I'm going to take 50 grams of it, mix it with some water, and chug it. But that's a lot of allulose. So even if we want to exchange it evenly for sugar, or maybe have to use a little bit more of it to achieve that same level of sweetness, that's okay, because you can actually tolerate quite a bit of it before your body starts to see these negative side effects. And even at that, the negative side effects are the same as pretty much every other keto sweetener, which is just like some bloating, some gas, maybe some diarrhea. And that's just in extremely high quantities. I could not see myself consuming more than 100 grams of this in a day. That being said, I did consume 100 grams in a sitting just to see what would happen. And yeah, I definitely got some gas and bloating. Didn't really have diarrhea problems, but we're going to do this on camera this time, and I'm just going to use 50 grams for this test. Now I've probably rambled on and on enough about this stuff, and you guys probably think I'm just some total fanboy for allulose, but this means nothing if it actually changes blood ketone and blood glucose levels. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a base rate right here for my blood glucose and my blood ketone levels. I'm going to drink 50 grams of allulose mixed with some water here. And we're going to check my blood glucose and ketone levels at 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and 120 minutes. So half an hour, and 2 hours. And we're going to see what it actually does to me just to confirm. So let's start by doing that now. Now, I am going to be using the Keto Mojo for the blood glucose and the Keto Coach for the blood ketones. And as a note here, guys, I am not looking forward to stabbing myself a total of 8 times. Got 8 usable fingers, so this is going to be a lot of fun. But I'm doing it for you, so make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments how much you appreciate what I'm doing here. So first things first, let's start off with the blood glucose strips. Now, you may have to take my word on it. One of the problems with the Keto Mojo device is that it doesn't show up well on camera, so I'm just really going to hope that it shows up well. As a note here, guys, the only thing I've had to eat today is I had some black coffee about 2 hours ago, and otherwise I haven't had anything to eat in like 16 hours. So I am well fasted, and even at that, black coffee won't break a fast. So no big deal there. We have no worry of like anything else affecting this experiment. Starting with the blood glucose levels. We're currently sitting at 93. I'm gonna just kind of rotate this around a little bit. I hope you guys can see that. And I am gonna write that down right here as my baseline. And now we're gonna check the blood ketone levels. Now I've actually never used this Keto Mojo device before. I got it from Mr. Goody Beats at KetoCon, and I've actually been trying to burn through my Keto Mojo strips, so I haven't actually cracked this one open, but I found out that my Keto Mojo ketone strips expired, so went ahead and busted this out for the testing. All right, moving on to my next finger. And hopefully you guys can see this one a little bit better. It's one of the reasons that I actually like the Keto Mojo, and I am gonna be doing a video in the future comparing the Keto Mojo, Keto Sense, and Keto Coach. But one of the reasons I like the Keto Coach is I think the lens or the screen shows up better on camera. Now I'm currently at 0.6 for my ketone reading. Hopefully you guys can see that. It's a little low for me, but it is early in the morning here, so my ketones are usually low in the morning. They peak mid-afternoon. In any case, I will write that down as well. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna bust out my trusty scale here, and we're actually gonna use the Hoosier Hill Farms allulose for this. This stuff clumps a little bit, so I'm actually just trying to burn through it. So I am going to just use that real quick. And by the way, guys, I will put a link to some allulose in the description if you guys are wondering where to buy it from. Pay no attention to the GoPro sitting right here. I just want to get a better angle of this stuff and prove to you guys that I am actually measuring out 50 grams. Okay, we are tared out 0 grams with that bowl on there. $24 grams. $48 grams. We're almost there. Maybe that'll get me there. 50 grams of allulose. And now that we have our 50 grams of allulose measured out, I've got about 18 ounces of water right here, and wrote down my baseline measurements on this slip of paper right here. So now we're gonna go ahead and dump that allulose in there, give this a shaking, and we're gonna drink it all. It's very fitting to use the grenade because this is like a sugar bomb going on. And just like that, guys, this stuff is actually pretty much all the way dissolved. You probably can't see it because it's a darker bottle. And I will take the lid off and show you that I drank it all at the end of this, but it's completely dissolved, which is actually like literally the reason I love allulose. Now we're gonna go ahead and drink this down, and again, I will show you the empty bottle once I'm done, and I'll just fast forward through me drinking it just for proof that I'm not screwing with you here. You know, it's actually not as sweet as I thought it would be. It really reminds me of Kool-Aid, which I guess makes sense, right? Our childhood favorite drink is literally like sugar, water, and purple. But I went ahead and left the purple out of this Kool-Aid because I didn't want to affect our experiment in any way. Now, I did mention that I did 100 grams previously. And the only reason I'm not doing that today is because I've got a squat day later on, and, well, you get the problem. Well, that'll do it, guys. Let me go ahead and just open this up here. Show you all the inside. You guys can see it's completely empty. Nothing. Oh, there's actually a little bit in there. There, completely empty. So I did consume 50 grams of allulose, which is probably far more than you will do in any sitting. But I'm doing this just to prove to you guys that it will not affect ketosis. So I'm going to come back in 30 minutes, 1 hour, and 2 hours and measure my glucose and ketone levels again. All right, guys, it has been 30 minutes since I drank 50 grams of allulose, so we are gonna start with the testing process here. I'm gonna start with the blood glucose on the Keto Mojo. Moving on to the next finger, of course. Currently at 97. I'd say that's within like normal deviation. Nothing real significant, nothing to write home about. We were at 93 before I drank anything, so pretty much no real change there. Next up, we're doing the blood ketone levels with the keto coach once again. And moving on to the next finger. I think pinky blood's okay to use. I've never seen anyone do it, but blood's blood, right? I swear, I get so nervous every time I have to push that button. So we're at 0.5, so, you know, roughly the same, nothing crazy. The thing you guys got to realize about these devices is like there's really like kind of a variance on them, right? Like they're not 100% accurate all the time. You've got a little bit of fluctuation. If I see a big fluctuation, like if those ketone levels drop to like 0.2, then I'm going to be worried. If my blood glucose levels go up to like 110, then I'm going to be worried. But a couple points here and there, I could do it 3-4 times in a row and they'd be slightly different every time. So I'm actually not worried about that yet. So I will check back in with you guys at 60 minutes. All right, guys, it has been an hour since we ate that allulose, and just to let you know, I haven't experienced any stomach problems, like nothing's groaning, grumbling, making any noise. Everything feels great. Anyway, it has been 1 hour, and now it is time to check again. So we're gonna start once again with the blood glucose levels. All right, I got the strip loaded in the Keto Mojo, and let's go and give this thing a test. All right. 90, if you guys can see that. So, I mean, it did go down at the hour mark. And by the way, the hours where I was expecting to start to see results, but like all these things again have like a standard deviation, like there's an acceptable range. So I'm willing to bet it's probably like plus or minus 5 from what is true. So hopefully you guys can see that. Blood glucose is at 90. And time to check the blood ketone levels. Got the strip in there. Time to stab myself once again. So excited for this, guys. Let's test it. 0.7. I hope you guys can see that right there. So, I mean, that's higher than my initial reading at the baseline. So I'm pretty confident in the ketone levels at this point. And I guess I will see you guys in another hour at the 2-hour mark to stab myself 2 more times. All right, guys, it has been 2 hours since I drank that 50 grams of allulose. And just to recap real quick, my baseline reading was blood glucose 93, ketone level 0.6. After 30 minutes, that was 97 glucose, 0.5 ketone. After an hour, that was 90 glucose, 0.7 ketone. As a note here, the past about 20-ish minutes, I've had a bit of like bubbling in my stomach, but I don't feel like swollen and bloated, just kind of like stomach gargly. That could be a couple things. It could be from the allulose. It could be because I've been fasted for, I don't know, like 17, 18 hours at this point, and I could just be getting a little hungry. But just so you guys know, that was going on. Other than that, I haven't had any real issues. And again, I'm going for a heavy squat day later, so I'm pretty confident this stuff is not going to mess with my stomach. Anyway, it is time to do the final readings. Thank you. I do not want to keep stabbing myself, so we're going to do the glucose and the ketone readings one last time and figure out what I am 2 hours after consumption. So we are going to start with the glucose. (92). Hopefully you guys can see that. Let me move it around real quick. So 92 on there 2 hours later. Awesome. And now for the blood ketone levels. What error? You shouldn't. Well, I guess we gotta do this again. All right, I'm not sure what that error was. Maybe it wasn't enough blood, but it did look like it. So I did just grab another strip, and I guess I'll aim for more blood this time. From a different finger, hopefully. All right, we got a good sized droplet that time. That better be enough. All right. We are getting a countdown. (0.9). So that is our final readings there, guys. So honestly, so it was at 92 glucose and 0.9 ketone. Well, what do I think about this stuff? Well, first of all, I'm just going to go ahead and say flat out, like, this stuff is not going to affect your ketone levels. It is not going to affect your blood glucose levels. It is not going to do anything to you, because I just consumed way more than you really should. I mean, that's twice what's in my pecan pie. Like, it was an absurd amount of allulose. And for that reason, I really do not recommend that you guys try this at home. But for science, I was willing to try it on my body. And everybody tolerates things a little bit differently. So as it turns out, I tolerate allulose pretty well. You may or may not. But as far as I can tell in this like N=1 study, it did nothing to my blood glucose levels. So we can confirm what the official studies say. And honestly, it really didn't have that big of effect on my gastrointestinal system in the dosage that I took. So as far as I'm aware, those readings of 0.5 grams per kilogram of body weight to not really feel anything in your stomach, up to up to 1 gram per kilogram of body weight per day, I'd say those are relatively accurate. Like I said, I felt a little bit of bubbling in my stomach, but like nothing crazy. I trust this enough that I'm gonna go do a squat day later, and I'm not worried about anything bad happening there. You know what I'm saying? So I think we can safely call allulose a safe sweetener. And some of you guys are probably wondering, well, if it's so great, if it's this magical sweetener like I'm making it out to be, how come we haven't heard of it? How come nobody's using it? And I think the real answer to that is popularity, right? You got to remember, before the keto diet, heck, even when I started like keto in 2015-ish, it was hard to find erythritol in the stores. And now that's everywhere. Like, I couldn't even find Swerve at my local Whole Foods. I had to go out of my way and order that stuff on Amazon. So I think this is one of the things that, it is new. Most of the studies that I'm seeing on it are from like that 2015-ish era, even though it was discovered long before that. I think that's when it started to gain traction in the food industry. So with that in mind, I am seeing new companies producing allulose. Heck, Anthony's, this was like the first time I'd seen Anthony's allulose, so I bought it up, and I think they completely sold out on Amazon. So I think more companies are starting to produce it. It's starting to become more available, so you're gonna see it in more recipes. But once again, the beauty of allulose is that it tastes like sugar. It has the same chemical properties as sugar, meaning it dissolves very similarly. It works well when it's heated. It works well when it's chilled. It's just an all-around great sugar substitute, and it is natural and no glycemic index. So that is just perfect. So that, guys, I'm gonna go and close the video. If you like this video, leave it a like. If you have any questions or comments, I'm sure there will be, leave them down in the comment section. And if you have not subscribed yet, do me a huge favor, guys. Hit that subscribe button, show some love, and I will see you in the next one.